It's been exactly 1 month since I received the Samsung Galaxy Watch. This is the 42mm Midnight Black Edition, and that 1 month has given me just about enough time to come up with some thoughts to pass back to you in case you're interested in purchasing one. So let's start off nice and light and go through the things I like about the Samsung Watch. So firstly, let's strip the watch back to its basic functionality, to tell the time, and in order to do that, the Samsung Galaxy Watch has an enormous library of watch faces which are available through the App Store. Now, not all of these are free, but the vast majority which are actually pretty good. So you'll find by them opening it up to third parties, they've been able to create this massive library, and you'll pretty much find a watch face which will be suitable for every type of situation, whether you're attending a business meeting at work or just going out for drinks on a Friday night. The one I've personally been using, and I mentioned it in the last video, is the Pip-Boy one. The second I saw that, I was like, yes. And it's been like the #1 watch face in their app store since I got the watch. Next, when it comes to actually wearing the watch itself, I'm gonna have to say its size, its fit, and its comfort level is another massive benefit for me. So we talked about in the last one, the only thing which would kind of distinguish it from a regular watch is maybe just the thickness. However, compared to some of the previous models, the Gear S3, it is still smaller, and especially the 42mm version which I have, as I mentioned, dainty wrists, I couldn't get anything too big, so this one was absolutely perfect. In the previous video I did mention about getting some extra straps to try out as well, because Samsung do just use standard watch strap fittings on here, so you can literally go onto Amazon, eBay and buy any other replacement straps that you want, but I didn't feel the need. The rubber one that comes with it, it was comfortable, it didn't irritate me, and I found it kind of worked with both of the things we just mentioned, which was using it in a business setting or just using it casually. Next we move on to something which has drastically improved since the days of the Gear S3, and that is the exercise function. Now, in order to test those features properly, I did have to do something which I promised myself I would never do again. I told myself it was a one-time thing, and you know, everyone experiments in college. Obviously, running is something the old watch did. The major benefit of this one is now it recognizes 39 plus different exercises, one of which being swimming, because unlike the last one, this one is waterproof, not just water resistant. However, one thing I did find about the exercise features on here, you kind of need to tell it you're about to start an exercise. It won't automatically detect all of them, and the ones that it does, it kind of picks up a bit later. You've already started the exercise, you probably missed out on a good few reps, calories. One of the other features of the whole fitness and lifestyle part of the watch is tracking sleep, which I've kind of seen some people say that will give you a rough estimate of your sleep. It's not something I have been able to test, it's just I can't sleep in it. I can't sleep in watches, bracelets, things like that. Moving on to another vast improvement from the previous version is the battery life, and I think it was one of the main selling points of this new watch. Kind of got to the point where people were tired of smartwatches which they were having to charge up every night. Obviously, we talked about in the last video, there was a reserved estimate of about 4 days battery life, which I just didn't believe on reading the specs, but from a month of using it, it's probably about accurate. So a couple of requirements to make it meet that. I don't have the watch face on all the time. I do use the motion on feature, which would just come on just by turning my wrist or reaching my wrist to my face. I do receive all of my notifications for it, so it does buzz every time I do that. I do check my steps quite regularly throughout the day. So overall, what I would probably describe as moderate use, not heavy. And through that average use, what I have found is plugging it in at the end of the night, it's usually only gone down about 25%, which means if I do my maths, then yeah, I probably could make it last at most 4 days. Speaking of charging it, because I ordered this directly from Samsung instead of Amazon or something like that, it did actually come with a free wireless charging dock, which is used to charge both your phone and the watch, which was a nice additional extra, although I do have to say, being on the bedside stand next to me, it does kind of kick out some noise during the night, which you wouldn't expect from a wireless charger. You wouldn't expect any kind of moving parts or fans or anything, which I think is probably a nice segue into some of the issues I have with the watch. And let's start with my #1 bugbear, my #1 gripe with the Samsung Galaxy Watch, and that is the lack of apps. Limited by Samsung's Galaxy App Store, pretty much my main function for it has been finding new watch faces. Other than that, the actual apps available for the year 2018, the top apps in the Samsung Galaxy App Store at the moment are a timer, a stopwatch, a flashlight, and this 8-bit turret shooter which I found. Simply put, the only way I could describe the selection of apps available on the Samsung Watch would be with the only other kind of decent app that I found. Although it's nice to see the inclusion of some larger names in the App Store like Uber or Spotify, the selection of apps just isn't there. Next it's onto a feature of the watch which I hate just as much as I do on the phone, and that is Bixby. Try as Samsung may, I'm sorry, but Bixby will never be Siri or Google Assist. Is Siri better than Bixby?
I only compete with myself to be the best sidekick for you.
At minimum, I would say that Bixby on the watch is just about capable of maybe calling a contact while you're driving around or something, but it's very different to having a Siri or a Google Assist attached to your wrist, in the sense you ask it anything more complicated than that, and it won't know the answer. Call Shay.
I couldn't hear you. Please tell me again.
What's 2 plus 2? How far is it to the moon?
Unfortunately, this functionality is not supported by voice.
Next is only a small complaint, but you know what? This is my time to sit here and complain, and I'm gonna take it. And that is the wake up gesture which we talked about earlier. As I said, it should be a case of turning your wrist and the watch will come on, or lifting it up to your face and it will come on. And of course, in both those instances, it done it because it's trying to show me up. However, I have found in a lot of instances that I'll end up like on the street just raising my arm up and down, trying to get it to turn on just so that I can see the time, probably spending about 5 times the amount of time it would take to just push the button on the side and turn it on. However, this is like a drawback and a benefit to not having the watch face on all the time. You do have to go through these gesture controls to get the watch face to turn on, but you are saving the massive amount of battery life that we talked about before. However, one thing I have noticed is once the watch does wake up, for a small amount of time you can actually see the last thing it was displaying. So when it comes to the time, if I haven't checked it in a couple of hours, my first initial shock is, oh, it's still quite, okay, no, there's the time. It's only like a split second, but it's enough to take it in and register in your brain before it updates. This is also true for other parts of it, including the step counter, calorie counter, stairs climbed, all of the things where it's basically going to show you a figure on screen. It will just take a small amount of time to update, and it can be a little bit confusing if you just want to glance really quick and look away. And then my last complaint, again, just a small one, but while I'm getting them out there, is just to do with the stress feature on the watch. This is more of a marketing thing for me. I think we were led to believe before the release that it would be some kind of stress monitoring system. It would maybe kick in when it detected that you were feeling stressed and suggest maybe some breathing exercises or something like that. When really it's just a glorified heartbeat monitor. So by pressing measure, all it seems to do is monitor your pulse for a short amount of time, and then on its spectrum it will say whether you're stressed or not based on the beats per minute. Which, you know, I've used it during the week in some of my most stressful days, done the rating, and just because my heartbeat was relatively stable, it said I was fine. I can promise you, I was not. Which leads me to my final thoughts. Would I buy it? Would I recommend you to buy it? I think so. Like I've said throughout this video, we were making several comparisons to this compared to the Gear S3. I think they've made a lot of improvements, which might make it worth, if you own a Gear S3, to upgrade to the Samsung Galaxy Watch. If you don't own a smartwatch already, maybe this is a good place to start because of all of the new features, because of the increased battery life. In terms of price, compared to the new Series 4 Apple Watch, I mean, it's at least £100 cheaper. It's not overly big, it's relatively comfy to wear, and other than the small bugbears, which a lot of them seem to be software more than the actual watch itself, which could all be improved on by Samsung releasing updates, then I think I would have to recommend the Samsung Galaxy Watch. However, these were just my thoughts and opinions after 1 month of using it. If anyone else who owns a watch wants to leave any of their feedback, feel free to do so in the comments down below. If you found this video particularly helpful, remember to drop a like. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel, and as always, I shall see you in the next one.